Good afternoon. Business Town Talks on Unity101 radio station across Southampton. Broadcasting on 101.1 FM and online on www.unity101.org. This show is also available on most digital devices such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and can be accessed from all the mobile phones. I'm your host, Santosh Kumar, founder and CEO of B2B Growth Hub, focused on empowering entrepreneurship success. In today's program, we'll be discussing the power of print media. Is it a history or a gold mine? Along with my guest, Neil Armstrong from the moon. From Village Publication. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm very well, very well. Nice. Always nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Well, we were talking about, this gold mine, and tell me a bit more about Village Publishing. What is Village Publishing for our audience?
Yeah. So Village Publishing is a publishing company. We do magazines and papers, community papers that go through the door of everybody within particular communities and conurbations. So we've been going in Dorset for many years, and we do papers and magazines that go through the door there, and we're branching out into Hampshire this year and other parts of the country with similar publications which are free to the reader. So they're advertising and sponsorship supported, and they go, as I say, they're available at pickup points, but they usually go through the door of everybody.
And when you say community paper, it's not like daily newspaper like Daily Echo over here, or is it similar any shape or form?
No, not at all. We don't talk about councils and potholes and cats stuck up trees. We focus about lifestyle. We have celebrity interviews. We have features on fashion, health and fitness, well-being. Nothing offensive, everything positive, and hopefully a good read. My opinion as a publisher is that if you are putting stuff through people's doors, it's a good idea to make it worthwhile, so that they don't just throw it in the bin. So we spend a lot of time. We create our own good quality content for a wide audience, and we make sure that when they go through the doors, that people then find something of interest for them to read.
And I have heard that most of the time when people have started receiving this, they are always awaiting for the next issue. What's the reason for that?
I mean, it's really mad, but we've been doing papers in there's a place in Dorset called Poole and Ashley Cross. We've been doing a paper there for about 10 years. People, it is the paper for that area, and people go, I wondered when the next one was coming out, and they welcome it. We never have anyone that says, never put that stuff through my door again, and never darken my door again, get out of here. People embrace it because it's based within the community. It has some content which is local and some content which is very local. We might have an interview with a local shopkeeper about something. We might have we might feature a business or do a restaurant review that is right within that community, as well as blending that with stories from further afield and interviews with celebrities and other interesting articles. And of course we always focus on local business and buying local and spending money in your local area, because people want to do that, and I think they wanted to do that before COVID. They certainly want to do it afterwards. You want the best that you can get from your local community. You want to live there, work there, and spend money there if you possibly can, and it cuts down on travel and expenses to do that.
True. So what made you think of starting Village Public? How did you become an entrepreneur?
Well, I started in publishing a long time ago. 30 years ago, actually.
Okay, that's a long time.
So, yeah, it is. You're telling me.
Same industry.
Yeah.
It means you are quite old.
Yes, absolutely.
I was thinking you were 21.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know a look it. So I've been in publishing for 30 years, and I started off as a writer.
Okay. Where was that?
That was in Bournemouth, and I worked for a publisher. I got a job as a writer, as a staff writer on a magazine. Previously to that, I'd been to college and university and studied design and then photography.
Okay.
But I fairly quickly decided upon being qualified that I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And luckily I was able to write. I didn't know I could, but
yeah.
I was able to, and then got a job as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, sort of worked my way up that kind of career ladder, became a senior staff writer and then an editor, and then moved jobs into PR, so public relations, and then marketing. That all within the kind of technology sector and gaming and multimedia and things like that. Yeah. And then started my first business as a freelance writer, really, and then it evolved from there.
Okay. And you mentioned about design and the photography.
Yes.
You also got involved or studies creative arts. How does that fit into the picture?
Yes, it's rare. I've been, I've met a lot of people in the 30 years that I've been in publishing, and it is rare to get someone who comes from a visual creative background who can also write.
Yeah.
There's a few, but
and
not
then
that
photograph.
Many. Yeah, well, yeah. I think there's a visual side, and that's almost one side of the brain.
Yeah.
And there's a writing side, which is the other. However, I think both are very creative.
Yeah.
And they both come from pretty much the same place. And if you are, if you're able to think in terms of images and words, and I mean, even how my memory works, when I think of things, I see pictures of what they were like, or what I'm trying to remember. I don't see anything else that reminds me of what I'm doing and what I'm supposed to be doing. So if you're adding words to images, then if you've got the skills to do that, that to me says publishing, because when you think about it, a magazine or a paper is words and images.
Yeah, very true.
And even online, it's words and images. Now you've got a little bit of video to go with it, and you can have music and sound, etc. But really, it's all content, and it all drives what we're interested in as both consumers and people in business.
Yeah. How old you were when you got this idea of starting your own business,
When I was at school, I always used to dream about having a little media empire. I could imagine, I could imagine having a graphic design house and a magazine, and maybe a fashion line, and I had it all played out and mapped out in my mind. I should have probably just concentrated more on schoolwork rather than daydreaming. But I always wanted to, when I could, or when it was right to do so, to go into business. I'm always, I feel a lot better personally when I'm making my own decisions, making my own money, and I'm big enough and ugly enough to also kind of accept that mistakes that are made, if I make mistakes, I can live with that. But when I was an employee, I wasn't a very good employee, because people would, my employers might make mistakes, and that would affect me, and I didn't like that. I'm fine with me making the mistakes.
Did that trigger starting your own business?
I think it did, yeah, because also I'm not a very good employee anyway, because I don't take instructions very well, and people would ask me to do things, and then I'd say, well, why? Because why would I want to do that? I could just do this, and there's another better way to do it. I realised that they didn't want to hear that when you're 17 or or 18.
Yeah.
They just want you to get on and do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of understand that now to some extent.
Yeah.
But I mean, what that's related to in terms of my business is I like to work with people and colleagues that do make decisions and are empowered to do so, and like to have ownership and be involved at a deeper and or higher level in a business, rather than just, you know, turning up, doing your job and going home.
Yeah. So what sort of problems or customer needs Village Publishing is fulfilling, or, you know, trying to solve?
Okay. Well, most of our customers, so our customers are usually businesses that that want to get their message across to either consumers or the businesses. So we have two types of products, essentially. We have publications that go direct to business decision makers.
Yeah.
We have papers that go through the door of everybody in a community. So if you challenged yourself to think, how could I tell everybody who lives in my local area, say there's 10,000 households, how could I tell everybody about my business? Then, you know, the only real solution and the cost-effective solution is to put something through everybody's door. You can't reach everybody with in digital terms. You can't reach everybody with radio. You can't reach everybody with TV. You can't reach everybody with social media or with websites. You'd have to spend money on every platform, and still you wouldn't reach everybody. Whereas if you put something together and put it through everybody's door, you know that they've at least seen your message or got it. And that's where the power of it is. So we help businesses to get their ideas or their products across to an audience. And if you do that consistently through time, over a period of time, people get to trust the publication, and as you said before, it's welcomed on the doorstep. So they then, with consistency, they get to trust what's in there. And of course, trust is an interesting thing in this digital world that we live in. It's much easier to trust an advertiser in a paper or a magazine that comes through your door, because we've checked them out, they've paid to be there. Whereas if you're online and you click on an offer and you pay, you don't know whether you're going to get that offer or not. You don't know these people. They're not in your community. So it's better, I think, to spend money locally, to shop locally, to use local businesses who you trust, and to trust brands that reach out to you in that way and want to engage with you, want to be part of the community. And the way to do that, as well as supporting community radio stations such as Unity101, is to get your message across to a community through the door.
And you mentioned about, you know, creating some values, also, you know, from the customer's point of view, you know, touching base with various different people, reaching out to all the households, you know, in the local community. Are you referring to the local businesses? Maybe, you know, can anybody advertise, whether, you know, it's a restaurant owner or a estate agent or, you know, a financial advisor?
We're pretty much open to everyone. I mean, we don't.
Who gets most benefit?
Well, we prefer. We prefer to have advertisers who are within that community advertising to start with. So we like to do. It's not an expensive thing to do. So we don't like to close the door to anybody who wants to get their message across. So we have opportunities for, you know, tradesmen and smaller businesses to get their message across in the same way as a large business would, but we prioritize small and medium-sized local businesses. We don't go and pitch, you know, national brands and, you know, McDonald's and things like that to come in. They don't need us and we don't need them. What we'd like to do is be a voice for the small local business.
Heroes.
Yes, and people genuinely, before and since COVID, want to live work and spend money where they live.
Yeah.
People don't like commuting too far anymore. They don't really like going. If you're going into a city centre, for instance, from outside of that in a local area, you've got to find parking, you've got to pay for parking, it takes time, there's traffic. People like to just pop out and use the local services, buy local, spend money locally. And if you can create that environment, and what we want to try and do, and what we do with our magazines and papers, is we try and be a conduit for that, so that the businesses in the local community can use that vehicle to get their messages through the door of everybody in that community, so that people are aware that there's a restaurant, or they can buy their groceries there, or there's an optician around the corner, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple of times, like one thing you mentioned is very cost effective. Also you said low cost. Is it low cost for, say, let's take an example of a restaurant owner who is distributing maybe their, menus or leaflets maybe every month or every quarter.
Yes.
Is it more cost effective for them to use a magazine publication or newspaper advertising?
Certainly would be, yeah. I mean,
and why will that be? And how that will be?
So what we can do, you can insert. So if you think about the fact that we're already putting stuff through everybody's door.
Yeah.
So the local restaurant could give us our menus, and we'll put them through the door while we're putting the paper through the door. Okay. That's very cost effective. Secondly, we're spending the money to print the paper.
Yeah.
So if you put an ad in, it's much cheaper than creating your own printing.
Yeah.
And then it's cheaper than going and putting it through the door yourself, because that takes time and money. We're already doing it, so you can advertise in our papers and magazines very cost effectively, as little as £150, and then that goes through those doors, so that you don't have to. So if you think of a small business like a tradesman, like a plumber or an electrician, how much would it cost for those guys to get a business card printed 12,000 times? It would, even at the cheapest things online, it would still cost them £300 or £400, and then it would cost them a lot of time and effort to put it through everybody's door. Well, just pay £150 and we'll do it. So it's very cost effective, and of course it has the added value of the trust, because if you're in there consistently and people trust the publication, they also trust who's in there. So it's much better than putting your own leaflet through a door.
And when did you decide that you wanted to, in terms of timeline, to when you started this business? When was that?
Well, 10 years ago, we've changed the business focus, because I'd started the publications about 10 years ago, the ones that are going through the door at the moment. About 10 years ago, because I had a creative agency as well, and we used to publish magazines on the side. Okay. So now I managed.
This has become more focused from last 10 years.
I managed to sell the creative business, but then parachute out the publications to concentrate on that, because it's an interesting creative outlet, and I think it brings together most of my personal skills, but also the skills of the key employees that we have.
And also, when we are in the business, you and me both know that most of the time, decision making, we are talking about decisions. Decision making is something becomes very critical and very. Have you reached to a time when you are unsure of making any decisions?
Yes, pretty much all the time.
Okay. Recent one, any recent example?
Yeah. Well, what I was going to have for breakfast this morning. In business, I mean, you're always making decisions, and you can't pretty much ever know whether you're making the right decision or not. And if you wait for the data to back up what your decision's going to be, then you'll have missed the opportunity. So the fact that you have to interpret, I think, is gut feel, and that's one of the languages of business. Really, is as a business person, you are interpreting the information in front of you, it's a bit of a blurry picture, but you've got to go in a direction, and your gut feel 9 times out of 10 will take you in the right direction. That 1 time out of 10 it won't.
So,
and
gut feel, when you said, it means calculated risk, is it?
Yes, I think so. It's a
based on your skill and experience.
What's best to get to the opportunity? What's best to reach the conclusion that you want? And sometimes you can get that wrong, and I think you get it wrong more when you start out in business, and hopefully as you grow in business and go from entrepreneurship to being a business person, then you might make less mistakes, but you'll certainly still make mistakes.
In your view, Neil, what do you think the entrepreneurs or the recent or novice entrepreneurs are the common mistakes they make, nowadays?
Well, I think first of all, it's probably they underestimate the time it takes to build a pipeline, and they underestimate the time it's going to take to make money and to come to fruition. If you think you could start a business today and in 2 or 3 months you'll be making a fortune, then you're probably wrong. It might take 6 months to make maybe a bit of money, maybe take a year. In some businesses it might take longer than that. So it's not something that is easy to do, and you have to really have some backup. You have to either have some other form of income, some other savings, or something that can see you through the harder, more narrow times to get you through.
And how can they avoid it? What is the magic formula for that?
Well, again,
is it more sales, more marketing?
You've got to sales drives every profit. So you can't make a profit without selling something, time or products or an idea or whatever it is.
True.
But you have to have people to talk to sell to. So, you have to create opportunity, and you have to generate leads, and that's where marketing comes in. So I always think that the two of them work in tandem, and I think of it as marketing opens the door to opportunity and sales shuts it. Without marketing, the sale won't happen. Without sales, the marketing's pointless. So it's very much a marriage of two sides of the same coin. And then what you need in all types of business is a little bit of luck as well.
And people say, and I assume that print media, where the business in which you are, it is a marketing tool. And people are, there are a group of people who are saying, print media, is it a history? But I have heard you saying it's a gold mine. Two different views, isn't it? And that extreme age. What do you say about it?
Well, I think people who think that print is dead are confused. They're wrong. And they're also confused. I think where they're getting confused is newsprint is dead. We don't get news. We don't find out what's happening in the world through newspapers anymore. We get that through our devices, through alerts, through the website, through television, through radio. Alexa tells us. We don't need we don't need a newspaper to tell us. It's just like, we don't really need a weather forecast to tell us it's raining. You look out the window and you see, it's raining. So what print media is still very much alive, because it is the way to get information through the door of everybody. And there are still a large amount of people that don't use digital media. They don't use social media. They don't have apps. They don't look at the internet. So so there's still actually a large amount of people who only use radio or TV. So you've got to use print media to get your message to everybody. And you can't do it in another way. You can't do it with even with infinite money to put into campaigns. You can't get that message across to everybody.
And also, I think you and me, we were discussing earlier, that one channel is never enough. So we always have to have multiple channel. But print media, in your view, plays a very major role if they can afford it.
I think it's a central part. I've got many customers on the contract publishing side, so that also means that we do magazines for other people.
Yeah.
And what they do is they put a publication at the centre of their marketing strategy, because if you do that, you're creating content for the printed matter, but you've also got a lot of content then that you can use for the rest of your channels, and so digital and printed goes hand in hand. And in actual fact, there's been a lot of research done in the last couple of years by independent market research companies, including Gartner, and some of the conclusions that they've come to is that advertising and printed editorial, in conjunction with campaigns in the digital realm, work 16%, 16 more times
16
better.
Times
so
more.
So 16 times more. So it's infinitely more effective. And again, that supports your view about the multiple channels. You've got to put many a fishing line out to catch your fish, and every channel can speak to different people. Yeah. But if we put publishing and traditional media at the very centre of what we do, we give ourselves the opportunity to capture the most people.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Neil. We are almost coming closer to our show.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask a couple of more questions which can help our listeners.
Okay.
As an entrepreneur, I'm sure you have learned many lessons. Which one do you think is one of the biggest impact which has created on your life?
Lesson. Well, you've got to have funds. You've got to have funding in place.
Okay.
Right. You can't bootstrap things anymore.
Yeah.
You've got to, if you can't. You've got to get help, and if you can't afford help, and you can't, you have to therefore do it yourself. So if you're doing it yourself, you have to have money to support yourself to do it, and otherwise you'll get trapped. And most businesses fail within that early period because they can't get those things right. They haven't got the money to support the marketing or the sales. They haven't got the money to support themselves. And because you're not in control of customers' timelines when they're going to buy from you, it can sometimes go awry and you run out of money. So I've learned that lesson, and I've had periods of time where that's happened to me.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a strategy. You have to keep on going. You have to keep getting up in the morning and doing it and believe in what you're doing. But you also have to have things in place, such as money, such as support from your family in order to get those things.
Finance, family support,
Absolutely.
sales and marketing.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's business.
Okay.
And it's actually
that becomes
everyone
a special formula then.
It does, because even everyone contributes to that. A successful business. If you're a successful business person, you will have a family that's supporting you.
Yeah.
You can't do that without them in place. Very difficult to do it those things on your own, and you've got to have partners and partnerships and friendly people in business that will help you as well.
Sure.
And working together and all of that sort of thing. It all adds into the mix.
Yeah. Well, you are listening to Business Town Talks on Unity101 radio station. Today we talked about the power of print media. Is it a history or a gold mine? Very clearly, in Neil terms, it is a gold mine.
Yes.
Can you share one of the most valuable entrepreneurship lessons for our listeners, Neil?
Well, what I've learnt is that everything's a balance, and you've got to, you've got to have the cornerstones of everything in place to be truly successful.
Yeah.
But where you measure success is down to you. If you measure success as making £1 million, then go for it. If you measure success as lying on a beach with a pina colada,
so define your own
family,
success routes.
And also your world is do you want to be king of the world, or is your world the village that you live in?
Defining the lifestyle.
Defining that will give you some.
Shall we say goal planning is important?
Absolutely. Yeah. Completely.
How do you want? If people wanted to contact you, how do they connect?
Well, they can. The easiest way is to look online, which is www.villagemags.co.uk. All of our things are on there. If you're lucky enough to be in some of our communities, you'll see our papers going through your door. We have them in the Bournemouth areas and Poole, and also soon we'll have them in Southampton and Andover and places like that. So hopefully within the next 2 or 3 years, everybody who's listening to this will have our papers going through their doors.
Great. Thank you very much, Neil. It has been a pleasure having you over here on the Business Town Talk Show. With me as your host, Santosh Kumar, and producer Kelly on Unity 101. We will have another thrilling and exciting story next week. As always, you can head over to businesstowntalks.com to sign up to our emailing list, as well as check out all the links and resources on the show notes and on Unity 101 website on the Listen Again section. That's all for this episode, folks. Thank you very much. See you next time.